Hi, folks. I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Calvert. I'm the rock and roller, and he's Father Joe Grimaldi. He's the Holy Roller, and together we're the Holy Rollers. And welcome to the Father Joe podcast. And, we had Ash Wednesday. We had some laughs, you and I. We were talking about various churches and the way things are done. There was actually an Episcopal church that I saw here in Southfield, Michigan. That was they had a drive-through window for the ashes. If you'd like to do that, I'm sure you'd be thrilled to do that, Father. I can just tell by the look on your face. But we've also heard stories before of priests who unfortunately have been unable to make it, and they've actually put the ashes out in the lobby and said,
Help yourself.
Help yourself. So at the end of the day, it's all in understanding what Ash Wednesday was all about. And now that that's behind us, we're officially into Lent. That was the first day of Lent. We had Fat Tuesday, and we all enjoyed a nice Polish punchki. Now we start the rigors of Lent. And you will take to the altar this coming Sunday what to talk?
First Sunday of Lent.
The first Sunday of Lent, and...
Yeah. We speak about Jesus being tempted in the desert, as he goes into the desert, and he's tempted in so many different ways, because it's symbolic, basically, of how we are tempted. I mean, what do they say? You have sex, money, and power. Those are the big things that really the world has to put up with. And these are the three biggest temptations in humanity, if you want. And so these are the things that we try to fight against as we try to live a good life every day. One of the things I want to mention is that whatever we do for Lent should be something that is lasting. It's not a temporary fix between now and Easter. And after Easter, we go back to the same way of living. Whatever it is that we're going to do to celebrate, I'll use the word celebrate, to observe Lent, I think is important that it be something lasting. Because what we're called to do is to be converted. Now, I know that word is not always used in that sense, but to be converted is that we have a change of heart. And what a change of heart means is that we turn away from whatever it is that distances us from God and turn towards him, because convert means to turn. So from the opposite direction from which we stand. And so that all of us are sinners. Nobody is exempt. We are all sinners. In one way or another, we all have our faults and frailties, and we have to work on trying to do the best we can with those things. But we all need conversion. Some need it at a greater level, some need it on a much lesser important level, but we all need conversion. And conversion, of course, is to turn back towards God, to return to me. There's a beautiful hymn that's sung during Lent, which brings this together. And the hymn, of course, is called "Return to Me." It comes from one of the Psalms, but basically it's a beautiful hymn. So basically, when we, it's interesting that we have the idea that that Lent is a time to be hurt, to be punished. That's not what it's all about. It's a matter of dealing with the life that we lead, and see where it is that we need to make some amends. For example, I'm just thinking that if we are so stuck on ourselves that we can't give our attention to someone who needs us, we need to work on that. Okay, we just don't say, well, it's okay, that's me, let it be. If we're inclined to try to be superior to others so that we could get ahead, we have to change that. Well, no, we all need some change.
You were saying at one point as well that you can, as opposed to subtract, you can add to your schedule, as we Canadians like to say. By that, during Lent, why not go visit a nursing home? Why not go assist a food pantry? Why not go to a homeless shelter? Why not? And maybe that'll just become part of your fabric, part of your daily routine, or part of your weekly routine, or your monthly routine, whatever it might be. But as opposed to a subtraction, how about an addition? That would work as well for Lent, couldn't it?
That certainly happens. I mean, I like the way you put it too, Ken, because if we get into the habit of making sure that we give a call at least to a friend who's in a nursing home, and we do this on a regular basis during Lent, maybe we'll continue to do it later on. Maybe volunteering on the food line or whatever the case might be. Or, even raising money for the hungry, this type of thing. Whatever it is that we can do, it's a positive action as opposed to a negative action. Giving up chocolate is, somebody said the other day, I thought it was hilarious, Well, yeah, I'm going to give up dark chocolate, but I'll eat the white chocolate.
Oh,
see?
Man.
Well,
no, sorry. No.
That doesn't work. You know what I mean?
No style points at all for that one.
But again, I want to say that Lent is not a time for punishment. It's a time for remodeling. It's a time for...
I like that, by the way. Remodeling is a nice way of putting it.
A time of redoing what we find lacking in ourselves. It's a time to make a good examination of conscience. I don't mean like what we used to do with little kids, but I mean check out what is it that we're doing that we should not be doing, and then working on those faults and failings so that we could do better. That's where the remodeling comes in. Huh? We each have a little section of ourselves that needs remodeling, and maybe that's where we should concentrate during Lent so that there would be a terrific change in our lives. Huh? And as I say, it should be a change that is lasting, not just during Lent.
I like the fact that something should grow from it. Like you said, the sacrifice for the 40 days. There are so many typical staples of fasting for Lent that I can remember. Not drinking, or not drinking during the week. I had a buddy of mine that said, I'll only drink on the weekends. Of course, chocolate's always been a big one.
Always.
And I like the way that people like you said identify what really is a sweet. You know what I mean? I'll have some ice cream, but I won't have a candy bar. Well, there you go, Bob. I think you're hitting it on all 8 cylinders now, pal. Nicely done. But I do like that. Let's get back to the gospel itself for just a second. So Christ is in the desert, and he's tempted.
Yeah.
And take it from there. This is where you're the pro and I'm the listener.
Well, let me say this, that the Lord Jesus is like us in every way except sin. And basically the way I see that is that he was really, truly tempted. It wasn't just a make-believe symbolic action. Huh? This is what we believe, huh? That it was a true temptation, that he was able to resist, if you want. And it was not easy. So just like you and me, we are faced with temptations all the time, sometimes on a daily basis by little things, other times big things, okay? And how strong are we to resist these temptations for the good, okay? And I think that's it's as simple as that. He spent his time in the desert being tempted by the devil. He was led there by the devil. Again, what does that mean? A physical devil that led the way? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. It's just like the devil leads us. Do we see the devil? But he is leading us towards some sort of a temptation, whatever it might be. We're not speaking about somebody in a with the horns and the red and all of that.
No, I totally understand that. Of course, we had to put a caricature to it as kids,
yeah.
and no matter what, that'll always be maintained in my fabric and in my head for as long as I live. That caricature.
There are 2 things I think we want to watch out for during Lent is temptation and rationalization. Temptation comes from the outside. It's something that we have to deal with that comes in, whether whatever it is, it's coming from the outside. Rationalization is coming from ourselves, from the inside. Like, well, I'm not as bad as that guy, so I don't have... The measuring stick should be Jesus Christ, okay, ideally. It shouldn't be the guy next door, That guy is doing this, he's cheating on his wife, he's running around. I'm not like that at all, so I'm really okay. Well, no, that's not it. We all have our own,
right.
faults and failings. But we have to watch out for rationalization. It's so easy to fall into the rationalization because we're all decent people. We mess up, but we do, the best we can, usually. Now, to say that when I go wrong, I want to say, well, it wasn't me. The devil made me do it, this type of thing. No, it was me. And that's coming from the inside. This is what I mean by rationalization. Whereas the temptation is coming from the outside. So those are the two areas that I think we have to concentrate on if we want to truly make a good Lent, so that we will have this renewal in our life.
I think because of the history of the Catholic Church and going back, and of course, so many people are getting up there in years, but a lot of us remember, many don't, the fact that there was that time that you just didn't eat meat on Fridays. I mean, the fish sticks that my mother made, I guess you would call them fish sticks. I think they were small pieces of my dad's wallet, actually, that she put on a plate and smothered in tartar sauce. But then, of course, it's funny, though. I mean, commercial business still rocks heavily on the Christian belief of no meat on Fridays. And by golly, by gosh, you will see Arby's, Burger King, and McDonald's all shilling and pushing forward the fish sandwich. Yeah. So,
well, fasting, I think, is part of Lent. Fasting and almsgiving, those are things that we have to be conscious of.
But don't you think, for just a second, if I may say so, there's nothing really wrong with sort of like, hey, what the heck, on Fridays I will just stick with fish. I mean, it's a bit of a fast, but I mean, if it makes you feel good and if it puts your mind in sort of a Christian way, why not?
Yeah. Well, fasting, of course, is the amount.
Well, of course, I realize.
Abstinence is staying away from meats and so on and so forth. Discipline is good for us, okay? It helps us to fight the inner urgings, okay?
Right. See, this is what I did in high school. I would say the wrong thing and he'd get mad at me and yell at me.
No, I'm not mad. But we have to be disciplined. And how do we get disciplined? A little way is by fasting. Like, we really have only 2 days of fasting. Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. Those are 2 days of fast and abstinence. The Fridays throughout Lent we're supposed to be abstaining from meat. Now, a lot of people say, well, you know what? I love lobster and crab and so on and so forth. And of course, it's a lot more expensive than meat.
Is.
So why should I do that? Well, I don't know an exact response to that, but I would say this much, that it's customary for us to stay away from meat. And actually what I find, whenever we're told to stay away from something, that's the one thing you desire most.
Absolutely.
You could
Absolutely.
it might be Thursday and you're going to have a beautiful fish dinner, no problem. But if it's on Fridays, right. Why do we have to have fish? It's Friday. And here we were in training for the brothers, and so religious life. And so for Lent, very often, the superior would tell us, okay, today I want you to sit down at one of the tables where the people you like least are seated. So, okay, so as soon as that happened, of course, the people like, oh, I didn't know that.
Wow, that's brilliant. How did you do it?
Yeah, we did. I mean,
so in other words, you sat across from Phil, basically identifying yourself as a Phil disliker.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's brilliant, though.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It is. But in those days, that was way of practicing the discipline, if you want. And, you're supposed to during Lent is say a kind word to somebody you really don't like, this type of thing. It's easier than sitting down with people. I mean, they won't be as identified, if you do say a kind word to somebody you don't like, that person won't know that you don't like him, is what I'm saying.
Well, it sounds to me like you're also suggesting to people to take advantage of the period of Lent to also make this a really reflective time of the year for you. Reflect on the various areas of your life that you can just fix, some tweaking. No, we're not talking about going under the hood. We're talking about rotating the tires and just refilling the fluids and all of that, correct?
You say it beautifully.
Oh, thank you. Well, you can use that if you want. I'll be more than happy to be your speechwriter.
Would you come Sunday?
I am supposed. Well, if I have to, sure, I will. But do you find that the mass mobs increase during Lent or not? Do you find that more people attend church during Lent than would otherwise not?
Let me say this. For the churchgoers,
Yeah.
I don't think it makes a difference on Sundays, but it does make a difference during the week. There's a lot of people that really go during the week that they wouldn't ordinarily do, the other times.
Oh.
It's their way of doing their penance, if you want. That's not a nice way of putting it.
No, I know, because I'm getting confused now because of all of the various elements of Lent that we're taking that I'm kind of absorbing.
It's a bigger subject than you thought.
Yeah, it is a bigger subject. Well, okay.
I'm just thinking that, some people feel that this is a good way to deepen my spirituality. I think Lent is a good time. You said it beautifully before, but I have doubts about my faith. Okay, now what? Well, you're supposed to do something about it. And Lent is a good time to do something about it. Ask people who might help you understand what you have doubts about. Or I don't know what they do in the church. What are they doing this for? Why are they doing it? Well, ask people that know. Read about it. Pick a book that you find comfortable to read. I mean, don't just pick a book in the bookstore and put it on a shelf and never see it again. But find a book that you are comfortable with and read about the particular topic that is really urging you to do something about it. So I'm just thinking during Lent, it's a good time to deepen your spirituality by, first of all, clarifying whatever doubts you might have, or trying to clarify. Maybe you won't get the proper answer. Maybe after you listen to these people, you might say, that's it, it's not for me. I would rather go down to the Baptist church, or whatever the case might be. So I think that Lent is a good time for reflection, as you put it. And if the faith itself is causing you some difficulties, which it does sometimes, all of us have had our doubts at one time or another, we'll try to clarify those doubts by asking the proper people for good answers.
I don't know the answer to this. Do people get married during Lent?
Yes.
They do?
Of course they do, yeah.
Okay.
Now,
I didn't know if there was any sort of dogma or any sort of rules and regs about it or not.
No, the thing is this, that when people do get married during Lent, they're asked to be reasonable concerning flowers and, that type of thing. It shouldn't.
What about your vestments?
Not be as ostentatious. Our vestments don't change. We wear purple, I guess, or violet. It has different names. But anyway, that's what we wear during Lent.
Okay.
But for marriage, for the wedding, we would wear white.
Oh, you would wear white. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
And for funerals, we would wear white because we're celebrating the resurrection. And so you would wear the white. In the old days, even before you, Ken, they used to wear black vestments.
Is that right?
Oh, yes. For funerals, they would have black vestments. And then that changed to be modified a little bit with purple. But then they realized, hey, we're celebrating the resurrection of the Lord. So we should be joyful celebrating with white. And so white is also used for weddings itself.
So along with weddings, you will also have baptisms. Yeah? Baptisms?
No.
No.
Baptisms, no.
Baptisms, no, during Lent.
Well, again, there's a lot of our liturgical actions are steeped in symbolism. There's no question. And so if the baptism is really reserved to Easter and the Easter period, not during Lent, when we're really talking about the sacrifice that the Lord made for us. The baptisms are usually not allowed, unless it's an emergency baptism, as they used to have even in the old days in the hospital. Even a nurse could do it for that matter. But basically, no, for ordinary baptisms, we wait until Easter and afterwards. See, the Easter Vigil is the culmination of the whole liturgical year, because that's when you have the baptisms of those people that want to be Catholics, adults. You have those people who are Protestants and want to enter the church. That's also a renewal at that time. And then Sunday and afterwards, we reserve for all the regular baptisms if they want. And it's every Sunday after that.
Surely, yeah.
It doesn't have to be on a Sunday, but out of, maybe just record keeping and order, we usually do it on Sundays.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, I learned, you know what? A day is lost without learning.
I agree.
Believe me, I got a lot to learn.
Me too.
And you're going to teach me. I'm Ken Calvert, Father Joe Grimaldi. This is the Father Joe Podcast.
Thank you, and see you soon.
See you soon.
This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe Podcast.